What some of you may see as a threat, I may see as a sick person. You may walk down the street and see someone nodding over. You may see that that's a public safety menace, and I may see someone that just needs help.
Well, that's Mayor Bruce Harrell there from a recent forum on public safety, trying to thread that fine line between when it's time to bring in a police officer or bring in another resource to deal with disorder on Seattle streets. These forums carry the title, Creating a Safer Seattle. But the question, as always, how's that really going to happen? What does it look like to have these 911 alternatives, non-armed officers? When should they be dispatched? Do we have enough resources to build up programs like these? Well, I am tackling these issues and a whole lot more this week on Seattle News, Views, and Brews, your coffee break political podcast. I'm Brian Callanan. I'm a host on Seattle Channel. The views expressed here are mine, and it is a patrons first podcast here, folks. And I'm bringing in a very special guest to join me here, and that special guest would be none other than Acting Chief Amy Smith. She is the Acting Chief of the CARE Department. That's Community Assisted Response and Engagement, home to Seattle's 911 Center and home to its 911 alternative programs. Chief Smith, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you very much for being here. And thanks also to our patrons. These Patrons First podcasts are for you at the $5 level or above. Big shout out to Leon. Been asking a lot of questions about public safety recently. Keep it up, Leon. Thank you for the feedback, I should say. If you want to become a patron, find the podcast on Patreon at Seattle News, Views, and Brews. Email me at Seattle News, Views, and Brews at gmail.com. Spell it all out. We'll get you all hooked up. A big thanks also to Converge Media. The video version of this podcast airs on Converge most often Wednesday nights at 7. All right, off we go. Time for Right Here, Right Now. Chief Smith, I really appreciate you being here because I wanted to get your take on an important message I think the mayor is really trying to get across in these public safety forums that started up in March. He's hoping to do these all across the city in different police precincts. This message is as follows. The way cities like Seattle respond to 911 calls is changing or needs to change. Why is that? Well, the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform studied more than 1 million 911 calls in Seattle from 2017 to 2019, found 79.7%, about 4 out of 5 calls were for non-criminal events. Just 6% were associated with a felony of any kind. I know you know those numbers. I've looked at them too. You're in charge of 911 in Seattle, though. I just wanted to talk about the numbers you are seeing and what this means to you in terms of how we respond to public safety and 911 calls in particular.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There is a national conversation right now, and we see consistently across markets that trend that really, I often say about half don't require police or don't require fire. It's interesting to think about how we stopped iterating in design and first response. You know, we set up police departments like 1838 and then 50 years later, fire. Fire developed and now largely responds to medical calls. There's some fires, but it's mostly medical. And I think we know that. And I imagine if you looked at the calls for service, what types of needs were being manifest in community, probably in the 60s, we would have seen this trend, that there are lots of domestic disputes that are not violent, that there's PTSD, that we have substance use disorder, mental health issues. But rather than just setting up a new group of first responders to start to manage that body of work, we just kept sending police to all the calls. So I'm always very defensive of police because I sit in 911 and they've been required to respond to everything. And there is no first responder group who could possibly do it. It's just too varied.
Yeah. And in terms of the work that you're doing right now, I wanted to talk about dual dispatch and really how that works. This is a group of 6 workers under the CARE department here. They respond to low acuity calls, so these ones that are a little less intense and some of these more calls of more criminal nature there. And to start, this group is focusing on the downtown core from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. at night. I heard one example you gave during that forum recently. A 911 call came in about a certain individual. The CARE team responded, and all that person needed was a Slurpee. If only more of our problems could be handled with frozen beverages, right? I just wanted to break down how this works, how your crews help de-escalate situations, and really, could you take me from the start? When a call comes into 911, what does that look like?
Yeah. Well, I will say on the Slurpee
Hmm.
example, really what the first responders are doing is they're trying to figure out, can I shift the narrative? Can I get somebody stable to a place where they can have a conversation? Because often there is some sort of mental health crisis happening, or somebody's very upset, very escalated, and they're really skilled, holding eye contact, trying to shift the tone. Is there anything I can do for you right now?
Mm.
So that they can create a window of opportunity to talk about what somebody's really needing. What kind of service do they need? How can we get them help? And so that was, please don't call 911 asking for Slurpees.
Okay, got it. Copy. Got it. Got that. Got that.
But yeah, so the way that it works right now is that we've got a basic protocol in 911 that says we're focused on person down calls, which is really sort of an everything bucket. There's not a very good working definition for what that means. It means that we can see that a person is not doing well, that they're in some kind of crisis. Sometimes it looks like they're sleeping. What we're ruling out right away, the call takers, do you see any drug paraphernalia? We're asking different things about their position. Does it look like they're in medical crisis, or does it look like something else? And so if it's medical and we know it is, or if it's overdose, then we're sending fire right away. They have the overdose response unit. But if it's something else, if it's just somebody not doing well, and often it is somebody crying hysterically or just muttering and kind of walking through traffic, who needs, again, is incurring some risk in the process, and the care team can go out generally and help somebody out of that risk. So 911 dispatches the team just the same way they dispatch the police. It's the same thing. We're on police channels. It's
Right.
called dual dispatch because police have, at a minimum, situational awareness. They generally show up at the same time and just, everything okay here? Is there any concern? And then they can
Okay.
move on. Occasionally, it's a high utilizer, meaning somebody we interact with all the time. There are folks like this in the city. I'm at the public library right now.
Yeah,
They have the
right.
high utilizers, and we know, nope, this person we've known for 5 years, they've never been violent. And then my team can just go out. The other thing that happens is secondary response. So police will be dispatched to a call, and then they realize there's nothing for us to do here. Care team, are you available? Yeah.
Got it. And I just wanted to check in on this because I saw you post about this a couple weeks ago on social media. 320 calls for the care team, which launched in October. Police
Yeah.
were only needed 4 times. Is that right? Can you talk to me about that? It doesn't sound like police are needed too often in these situations. And a lot of time that's maybe just for a referral to a crisis care center or something like that.
Yeah, it was only for referral. So
I see.
now I think we're about 350
Okay.
to date. And again, we started in November and December. It was more a secondary response. We were shadowing. We were basically still kind of training up. So, it's really the January, February, March is where most of those calls are being managed. And yeah, to this point, we've never called police for reasons of security concern. We need help. That has not happened yet. So I'm happy with the design because I have said publicly, I prefer to start more conservative and let the data prove that police were not needed, that they're reporting to me, we do not need to go to these calls. And if I can see over 800 calls, that is their recommendation, that we're getting the dispatch protocol right, that we're not, again, incurring unnecessary risk to our responders, then we'll start to dispatch them.
Got it. Dispatch them by themselves rather than have police go with them. Is that what you're saying?
That's right.
Yeah.
It has been police's body of work. They do have the most expertise in who we're interacting with right now.
Yep.
And so I'm looking to them for the recommendation that this is useful to them. I've got to get them to high acuity calls.
Right.
So the urgency I feel is in 911, I will see, 6 or 8 or 10 priority 1 actual threat to life calls come in. And I'm supposed to be able to get police there within 7 minutes. Ideally it would be within 4 or 5. And I will never achieve that if I'm sending them to these low acuity calls. We'll never have enough staff for that.
Right. Can I just ask a quick question, though? Let's say your care team is on the scene of a call and they might need police for security reasons or whatever else. Are there some certain red flags that really tip that off or whatever else? I'm asking the what if. I just don't know what that looks like. And I want to know what the protocol is if that's in place.
Yeah. What's interesting is it looks just like what we've done with fire for so long. It was interesting to me the first time I started interacting with the press, this fear of sending unarmed responders to 911 calls. And I thought,
Yep.
we've been doing that for the history of 911.
Fire
They're armed.
department goes,
Fire
yeah,
is
I
not
see.
armed. Yeah. Yeah. And so it's a very similar protocol. Fire call for police backup and support all the time, and vice versa. We're all on the same radio. So my new team, they are first responders, and they have all of the same training, the same provision, and we're talking with one another. And so that's what would happen. All 6 of the first care team responders, they have years of experience already. 2 have been community service officers with police. One came from Colorado, was outside the system, but was working in corrections. And then the others have been part of a King County mobile crisis team. They know people well. They're just really skilled. And so those of us who are on the front lines of service, you just get trained. You get trained on situational awareness, scene security. We can see if somebody is de-escalating or escalating.
Right.
And you just have to be really well trained to know when to step back and to call for law enforcement. And there's something in first response, they call it fast backup, basically, where you expedite lights and sirens, all the units, if you have a first responder who's at risk.
Got it. I wanted to ask one more question within the series here of dual dispatch and how it works. It's that big question of what happens after that interaction with the care team. And I've heard from so many different first responders, people within the service side of this too, that we just don't have a lot of resources to bring people. And I just wanted to get real with you, Chief, if I could. What resources are available for the handoff after the connection with the care team?
Yeah, I say this every single day. I don't have places to take people, and that is the urgent need. We have got to get people indoors. I was just talking with a colleague here about the lack of public restrooms even. There is nothing I can do as far as intervening in somebody's life in a meaningful way if I don't have an appropriate response to fentanyl dependency, and if I don't have, first step into housing. Those are both critical urgent needs, and we have to address them. Whether I'm talking about, criminal cycles or crisis cycles, it's the same thing. So I'm operating within the system currently that everybody else is in. We all understand the lack of treatment centers, that we just have not invested appropriately in them. I've been in the space of mental health for a long time. We really divested from appropriate investment. Again, back in the 60s, we said we were going to develop community-based services for people with mental health needs, and we didn't. Simply stated, we really didn't. I'm very defensive of community-based providers and nonprofit providers because it is not their fault. It's not more oversight that's needed. We have not invested in it, not nearly enough. If you go to evergreen treatment centers, I like to talk about, because I feel like Seattle understands for opioid use disorder, often medical support is needed, right? I need to be on methadone. I need to be able to step off this drug. We all agree on that. And yet, if you look at investment in these clinics, it is not nearly capable of actually providing treatment. And the most heartbreaking days for all of us are the moments where, post overdose, somebody does want help. And okay, great. Where can I take you? I don't have it. So, so I'm a loud advocate, trying to illuminate for people, where the gaps in the system are. And I'm working really closely with folks at the county level because they really hold a lot of the dollars for behavioral health, mental health, and health.
Yep, and they're going to be bringing online their crisis care centers over the next year. You're very excited to see what's going to go on with that, but that's certainly an ongoing conversation. I want to talk about something up next with you, Chief Smith, and that would be, well, guess what, everyone? You've heard Seattle's trying to hire more police officers. Did you know we might need some more 911 call takers and dispatchers as well? We're breaking down a side of the story you might not know about, coming up on Now Hear This. Well, I've been talking about this on the podcast over the past couple of weeks. Seattle Police Chief Adrian Diaz and his staff are very worried about hiring, recruiting, retention. The SPD at its lowest staffing level since the 1990s, asking the city council for a boost in salaries, some creativity with bonuses, anything to reverse what has not been a good trend. But that's just part of the story, as Chief Smith told the audience at the Public Safety Forum on March 14th. Getting staff for her 911 center has been a real challenge, too, a challenge that some people may be overlooking.
We haven't considered these folks first responders and supported them the way that we should. We've treated it like secretarial work. And so, feeling invisible in the system, even though you were the first responder, absorbing uniquely the pain in community, not really having any closure, and then having to work, overtime, mandatory overtime, just like these other two departments. It's exhausting.
And we go from Chief Smith back to Chief Smith. So here we go. I did want to talk about this, Chief. Just you were answering a question about staffing, and I was just struck by this idea that many people might not consider folks who are working at the 911 center as first responders. Why don't people see them that way?
It's just a tradition. It starts at the federal level. The way that these jobs are classified, it has been classified as secretarial work. It was thought of, I always say it's like my T-Mobile bill. And that was just how it was categorized. Now, in Washington State, we're a little bit more progressive. We have legislated that they are first responders. I just testified for House Bill 2088, which extends liability protection to alternative responders, co-responders. And these moves are significant. It needs to be a national movement to acknowledge 911 professionals as first responders because they need liability protection. They also need the same wellness provisions, and benefits. It should be a similar type of profession where I can go work for 25 or 30 years, be supported in the work, have reasonable conditions, and then retire, with a pension or similar benefits.
Right. The hope there, these are the first responders is That's one way to look at it as well. And I guess I just wanted to get your take on it. Where is your staffing right now? What do you need?
Yeah, I've said just perpetually we're always understaffed. I don't think that we even have enough, they call them pockets. We don't have enough positions on the books where even if we were fully staffed, it would be inadequate to meet the need as rapidly as we would want to respond to these calls, both emergency and non-emergency. Right now, our vacancy rate is 14%, which is significantly better. Usually it's about 20%. I think if you look at, they're called PSAPs nationally, just a lot of turnover. My focus the last 6 months has been on retention, and it will continue to be. Okay. And also just shining light on a profession that is very difficult. It is very noble. It's very meaningful, and it's vital to the success of public safety provision and response. If we get it right in 911, things go better downstream.
Can you describe that? And whatever detail you want to give here, but just how difficult this job is. I'm imagining these calls coming in pretty constantly, dealing with some people in there at some of the worst times in their lives. What is this like for these call takers and dispatchers?
Yeah, that's right. So it's divided. So people take calls, and that's one discipline. And then you've got dispatchers, and that's really a different discipline. Right. So you basically upskill, you get trained. It's interesting when you sit with dispatch, that is really sort of complex, abstract work. You have to be a good systems thinker, especially right now. I don't have enough first responders to send to calls. And so you're rapidly reasoning, I've got a priority 3 call. Do I move this unit across I-5 to respond? Knowing statistically, I'll probably get another priority 1 or 2 call in just a minute. That in and of itself is so stressful because it's a judgment call, isn't it? And then if I don't send a unit, am I just leaving someone in distress who deserves a response? The call takers, it's really fascinating the way that they themselves need to de-escalate people. Think about the space of real trauma or crisis or fear, how hard it is even to remember your address. And so the calm is really stunning to me, actually, to observe how they can draw people out, get them centered, keep them focused so that we can get the details that we need, get the questions answered so that we can get the right response out. I think what is uniquely challenging, in my opinion, because I've been around social work and mental health crisis a lot, my whole career. And right away, spending time, I always say on the floor, just listening to what was going on, I realized how unique it is that there's no closure. I can be on the phone with someone holding them for 40 minutes waiting, again, until the police response is there. And they often don't know what happens next. They're on to the next call. I think that is really hard. And again, we're all people. We all have our own painful memories if you live long enough and things that we've experienced. And so, we throw around the term trigger in society a lot. And it kind of bothers me because that is a real impact.
Yeah.
that sometimes somebody has to relive one of the worst moments of their life. I talk sometimes about the dispatcher who was involved in there was a Wallingford fire that was homicide, suicide, a child jumping out of a window.
Wow.
Incredibly traumatic. And I happened to be in 911 on that Saturday, and you could just feel everybody's collective grief, that we are humans and that this is just a profoundly sad occasion. A whole community feels the grief of it. Will this child ever be okay? And
Right.
again, I jump into it and observe it and then come back out and have conversations like this to actually dwell in that space. And this is your job all the time.
Every day.
And it's thankless. Nobody has acknowledged these people. I mean, truly, it's just been an invisible part of the system.
Well, I'm just trying to think this through in terms of the resources you need and where the city of Seattle is as a city right now when it comes to the budget realities. Here we are dealing with a budget deficit, the city council is, of somewhere around $230 million. And there's this big pressure to hire more police officers, which I totally understand. And I don't want this to happen, but do you feel like the needs of the care department are going to be pushed back into the back seat? Or how's that going to go? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I don't believe there's any possibility that happens, in part because Chief Scoggins and Chief Diaz and I are absolutely shoulder to shoulder insisting that we're not going to just move money around in the system. We have to invest in first response first. No good is going to come until we get our streets a little bit more safe. And even if we feel safe, it shouldn't feel so sad. I often say, I don't want to go to the theater and have to step over a person, or to see the suffering in the street. It's not humane for the person suffering, and it's not good for the city. And I fully support all the revitalization efforts and all the wonderful things that are happening. But we need to respect life, the sanctity of life first. And that is what we pay for first. And I am insistent upon that. The care response is a lot less expensive, so there's a real financial practicality here. I haven't done the analysis yet, but, it's at least a third less than any other first responder unit because they don't need the same equipment. They just don't cost the same. And so, we're working together on that design too, to say, besides being more humane and perhaps more effective, this is more financially prudent. I know what we're spending in first response right now, responding to the same person day over day over day with different units.
That's something serious. And I did want to just try to figure out what happens there in terms of getting people up to speed as 911 call takers and dispatchers. I know the police department, fire department deals with a pretty that pipeline can run a little long because the academies take some time. Just getting people on board can take some time. What's that timeline for a call taker or a dispatcher, or maybe even a care team member that goes out on the street? What's that like?
Yeah, the Care Academy we set up was about 5 weeks.
Okay.
The training is hard in 911. Since I've been here, I joined the department about a year ago, and we've really tightened up the time from application to, you are in training, and it's probationary. There's a year probation, which is very appropriate. I mean, they're paid, right? But you don't really know if you have the temperament for the work until you start doing the work.
Okay.
It is challenging, the training process. And so right now, another thing I'm trying to do is figure out where is there duplication in training in our system. We're all trained in de-escalation. And, I think about before the badge at the police department, I participated in that. And I think it would be such a better design if our first responders were training together largely. There's so much overlap. And again, that would save a ton of money if we would do that.
Okay, so looking into some different options there for training. That's really interesting. There are a few more ideas that I know I'm going to be talking about with you over the next several months on that, but I did want to move on to our next piece of our podcast here, our next segment, some of the other big challenges ahead for the care department as it starts to grow. We're going to tackle that question on What's Next? Well, Chief Smith, I wanted to talk about some of the other challenges you have ahead. Do you think hiring and getting more staff on board for the care department, what's the biggest challenge you feel that you have ahead?
For me personally, the priority is to really audit the system and figure out which teams should be dispatchable who have not been. So I've talked about the community service officers. I've got 24 positions over there. Again, really skilled people who could respond to a variety of calls, but I haven't set them out primarily. We've got lots of different social worker and sort of triage units, outreach units in the city. So that's my first priority, is to figure out how do I organize this work and then assess where the gaps are. I understand. I have been told and can see that Seattle has a history of setting up a little new thing and never really investing in it, and then deciding, well, we don't see results. We scrap that thing. We set up a new thing. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. So I'm very happy about the first team of 6. That team should expand to 24 as quickly as possible because it's effective. Everyone wants it. We need it. I recognize the national trend, but beyond that, I want to make sure that I am sort of assigning best and highest use to all the different folks who have been in the space and already know the services well and know the high utilizers especially.
And it sounds like, I just want to make sure I hit this point home. Police officers want the care department. They want your dual dispatch team out there. There isn't a competition between officers and your crews going out there and trying to take care of people. Can you help me describe exactly what that's like? And I didn't mean for that to sound silly. I just wanted to know what it was like.
Yeah, I love the question. Again, it really is just a false narrative. There was an idea early on that there was going to be this antagonism from police. And my actual experience, and in part it's the way I went about it. I showed up, to the different precincts and said, what do you need? What do you not want to respond to? Is this the right design? How can I help? Yeah. And I sincerely mean that. I've said, their satisfaction in this approach and the utility is a major key metric for me. So I think that's part of it. But I feel more pressure to grow from police than any other group by a mile. By a mile, because they see it as a significant strategy for their retention. They know that if you go through the police academy and you want to do police work, you're not going to be real happy doing social work all the time. That's not your discipline. It's not what you're trained to do. And so I feel really supported. I felt very embraced, and I'm really grateful for that, because I think that Seattle suddenly is becoming such a leader in this conversation. And I would say if there's one factor, it was because Chief Scoggins, Chief Diaz, and, all the way down to the front lines of response, we've been in it together supporting one another. And that's how it should go.
I hadn't thought about that, but this is something that could actually contribute to officer retention within the SPD. If this is something if there's a lane that you can take up in the care department, you can certainly help out the SPD in that way. One challenge I see just in talking with people on the street about it, people I know, is really changing people's minds when it comes to this whole concept of public safety, what it is. Because in my mind, it's not an equation of X amount of police officers equals public safety. There's a ton more nuance to it. I think we all know that. But I think that's a challenge for me sometimes, because I think a lot of people in the general public say, okay, we get more officers, we're going to be all set, public safety. Can you help me with that? Because sometimes I think just talking to my neighbors about this, that's one of the biggest challenges of all in dealing with this.
Yeah, I think about these sort of macro questions all the time. I think one of the things we've gotten wrong is that we have sort of bifurcated public health and public safety. In my mind, that's the same thing. The same thing. Public safety is not just supposed to mean like I'm minimizing crime, but it means I'm bolstering well-being. Do we feel safe in our communities? And when there's early signs of trouble, do we have a resource that we can invoke? I've often said I really hope toward the end of my career I am squarely in the prevention space. I hope that we've designed a much better system so that we can triage and, again, get people into whatever rehabilitative path is appropriate, and that most of our energy is going to early signs of trouble. I mean, I know that's kind of a complex idea, but I think even saying, housing's over here, mental health is over here, physical health is over here, that's not a thing. That is not a thing. We should be doing human-centered design. I have a person who appears to be in crisis. What is going on here? What is going on here? And what kind of intervention could we provide to start to redirect somebody's life? We need case management. We do best when two things. It's not just, so if I'm fentanyl dependent, I need medical support. I probably need inpatient treatment because that medical support is complex.
That's right.
Dosing is important. But sometime during that treatment, I need to start to have hope that even if I feel like I've lost everything, that tomorrow could be better than today. I need connection. I need to feel like somebody cares if I'm alive or dead. And I said in a forum earlier today, it seems like in these policy conversations, we other people. We think that this human experience is so different than mine. And no, it's not. No, it's not. People are people. The brain is the brain. And most of us know what it feels like to have to navigate grief or to try to break a really hard habit or get out of an abusive situation or whatever. When was I able to do it? I first have to feel like my life has some basic value. And generally, I don't feel that unless somebody is messaging that to me consistently. Generally, we do best if we have a person, if we have one person to call who can help us. And so in a perfect world, back to the fentanyl dependency, the intervention would be the family, right? It would be loved ones or friends who can come and again, escort you into treatment because you will die otherwise. And lots of us have been part of those conversations. But in the absence of that, now we really struggle with what is the role of the public sector in this intervention. And I am just asserting we do not let people die on the streets. That cannot be a thing. We have got to believe that this person's life has the same value as my life, and we have got to design as though we believe that.
Thank you very much. This is the acting chief of Seattle's Care Department, Amy Smith, joining me here. Chief Smith, I really appreciate you taking the time.
I always love talking with you. Thank you.
Back at you. Thank you, Chief Smith. Thanks to everybody listening to this episode of Seattle News, Views, and Brews, where you can always find out what's brewing in local politics. Thanks especially to patrons who support the show. This Patrons First podcast is for you. If you'd like to access content like this before anybody else, find the podcast on Patreon, Seattle News, Views, and Brews. You can hear us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen. Just make sure you show your support by becoming a patron too. Thanks also for watching on Converge Media. We'll see you next time. Seattle News, Views, and Brews is an independent production of Callanan Media Services. Copyright 2024.